Okay, guys, quiet down, please. Later on, we'll be able to see whether or not everything is installed correctly, because either we will be able to talk to Twitter on your computer or we will not. So we'll see after this next step. So the next thing is going to be to get that first set of tokens. So now we're going to set up the first leg of three-legged OAuth. So we've just sort of been getting ready to get ready so far. Now we're actually going to do it. Okay, so... and also, as I go into this, know that there's going to be rather a lot of typing involved here. It's not that this stuff is complicated, it's just that there are lots of different keys and secrets and stuff involved too. I will give y'all a second. Yo, as we're getting closer to the end of this class, you guys are getting later and later. That can't keep happening. It's disrespect to everyone else who's on time. So please be on time, both in the morning and over the course of the day. Thank you. Okay, cool. So the rest of this is going to be setting it up so the user is redirected to Twitter. That's what we're doing next. As I was saying before, there's going to be rather a lot of typing in here. It's just sort of saying, okay, my token is this, my key is that, my secret is that. So it looks really complicated. It's not. It's just putting different strings in the right place. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install this thing called request. Just by a quick show of hands, who used HTTParty in Rails? A couple of you? Cool. So request is sort of the equivalent in Node. Request lets you send GET requests, POST requests, all that stuff. It just lets you make requests to other servers. And we're going to be using that to make requests to Twitter's servers. And then we're also going to install this package called QS, which stands for query string. Who can tell me what a query string is? Anissa? I know you weren't raising your hand, but no? All right, Adrian?
Is it like a string that someone might put in when they're searching?
Yeah, exactly. So you see stuff like, so it's like name equals Juan, and I don't know, color equals blue. This is a query string up here. It's like, it's not the same thing as params, but it's sort of like a similar concept. It's just a bunch of key value pairs smack dab in the middle of your URL. We're going to be using that to get these tokens. Okay, so I've installed those. Now I'm going to require them. Request. I'm going to call it QString instead of QS, just to remind me that it's a query string. And now I'm going to set up this login Twitter path. So my goal is that whenever someone goes to /login/Twitter, they end up getting redirected to Twitter, where Twitter asks them, hey, do you want to authorize this app? So that's what we're going to be doing now. Where should I put this? I'll just do it right here. So this path is going to be /login/Twitter, function recres, just like every other path. And then, so every API is going to have a special URL that you use to get these tokens. In the case of Twitter, it's this one right here. I'll slack it out so you don't have to type it by hand. OAuth/request token. This comes straight from the Twitter API documentation. Hopefully I spelled that right. We'll find out. Okay, and now I'm going to create a little object that contains some of the different things I need in order for Twitter to be like, hey, this guy is who he says he is. So I'm going to I need that callback URL. So that's the 127 blah, 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 /login/Twitter/callback. I need that consumer key. And I need that consumer secret. And when I have all of those, I'm going to use request to make a post request to this URL that I specified up here. And I'm also going to pass in all of this OAuth data that I specified right there. And then I'm going to stop after that in just 1 second to check out what happens. res JSON response. Okay, so I predict that when I type in /login/Twitter and go to that in my browser, it's going to send a post request to this URL, and then it'll show me the JSON of whatever Twitter responded with. So we'll see how this goes. Localhost 2001, login, Twitter. All right, and here we go. So this is all the stuff that I just got back from Twitter. So this is good. I can tell that I'm communicating successfully with Twitter's API. So I'm off to a good start. And this is all the stuff that they sent me back. It is a whole bunch of stuff. One cool thing about request is that it does this OAuth thing. So this is what it's doing behind the scenes is another hashing thing. If you look down here at the bottom, down here, there's this OAuth signature. I didn't type that in anywhere. Where that came from is request takes like my callback URL, my consumer secret, my key, it smushes them all together into one big long key, and then it hashes them using some sort of calculation and turns it into this signature. So that's yet another security check in there. This is probably the most complicated part of this entire process, and we don't have to worry about it because request already has this OAuth thing built right in. Doing this signing thing, this is like the most complicated part of working for Coinbase because every character had to be exactly right or it wouldn't work. Request takes care of all of this stuff for you, so all you really have to do is just make sure the appropriate data gets in the appropriate place. And it all happens through this guy right here, just that one little step. And then I can tell that it worked because I get all of this stuff back. And I'm just curious what it would look like if it didn't work. So I'm just going to delete one letter from my secret. And now, suddenly, things change. So before, it said status code 200. Now it says status code 401. That's only 3 off from 404. You guys have all seen 404 errors before. 401 is a different kind of error, and it says right here, could not authenticate you. So even if I'm just one letter off, it's not going to work. If I put that letter back, there we go. I'm back to everything working exactly the way it should. So again, this is security, so it's extremely picky. There's no wiggle room anywhere in here. All right, so I've got this response back from Twitter. What I'm actually going to do with it is I'm going to use it to make a new URL. So I'm going to take this stuff I got back from Twitter. I'm going to take this body right here. And it's encoded like a query string. So it looks an awful lot like name equals Swan and color equals red. You can see that there's OAuth token equals this thing, ampersand OAuth token secret equals that thing. So they just encoded everything as a query string. That's why we downloaded that QS package so that I can parse that. Now if I do res.json auth data, I should see these two guys. There we go. So I can tell that it's taking that query string and it's turning it into a nice object for me. So that's just one more step I don't need to worry about. Okay, so when I have that, the last thing I'm going to do is redirect the user to Twitter so that they can actually sign in. Let's see. And so now instead of parsing a query string, I'm going to make a query string that contains my OAuth token from this auth data thing right here. Auth data OAuth token. And I'm going to be using this OAuth token and that secret later on, so I'm going to save them as a session variable. This is the first session variable I've made, and I'll show you in a second just how it works. OAuth token, rec session, t OAuth secret, OAuth token secret equals auth data OAuth token secret. And the last thing will be to redirect to Twitter. And here's another long URL that I'll supply you guys with, so you don't need to worry about it. OAuth authenticate post data. Okay, so we'll see if this works. So now I predict that when I go to login/Twitter, it's actually going to redirect me to Twitter. We'll find out. And there it is. Authorize WinPres to use your account. Yes, I would like to. So this is what I was talking about, where it says this application will be able to, all the different things that I am authorizing this application to be able to do for me. So I'm authorizing it to make posts on my behalf and all that stuff. It's not going to, don't worry about it, but I've authorized it. And when I click sign in, it is going to take me back to my app. I get this 404 right here. Okay, so I mentioned that I set a session variable here. If I go into Mongo and I go to my WinPresident database, I can actually see that there's now, oops, show collections, that there's now a collection called sessions. I didn't make this. I didn't specify schema for this anywhere. That connect Mongo thing, that did all this for me. It set up this table. If I look in there, dbSessions.find, here are all of the different sessions for my app. There are so many because I've signed in and signed out and logged in as different users and everything, rather a lot. But each of these things is the session data for one particular user. And so that's all the stuff that we're seeing right here. This last one, I believe that's the session that I just created and that we just saved stuff to. Mohammed, I see you, just 1 second. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new session variable, student name equals Mohammed. And then when I run this again, I should see that show up back there in my database. Oops, I'm missing the 3000. Okay, now if I go back here, see if that works. There he is, student name Mohammed. So here it is saved in my database, and I needed to do very little work for that. Mohammed.
Is it, since you kind of connected to the Twitter API and you have permission to do stuff to your own Twitter, could you make a new Twitter post straight from your console?
Yeah, but I don't actually know how. So theoretically I could, but I don't know how. I'd need to look up their documentation.
What are all those backslashes?
So this is because it's a string, and so it's trying to escape all the different quotations and everything. Yeah?
Why is it saving all of your old stuff in the database? Shouldn't it clear that out just to save space? Or is that something that is like a product of WinPresident that you could have added?
It's because I've made WinPresident a couple times on my computer, and so these represent the sessions from like several different WinPresident apps that I've been running on my computer. Each one will have its own batch of sessions, but they all use a database called WinPresident, so it all just happens to be going into the same database.
Like if we were making something, would we have to include a line that says in the session or delete all data from the database related to that file?
Nah, you shouldn't need to. It should do it automatically for you. It'll automatically expire and wipe itself after a while.
It'll wipe itself from the database?
If you set an expiration date.
And Mongo keeps track of that?
Well, so what happens more likely is that actually it sets an expiration date on the cookie, and then the next time the user tries to log in, then it sees that that's an expired cookie and it wipes it from the database. But Kyra.
Considering that Express is JavaScript based, if we wanted to use this without Express, is that possible?
Well, you couldn't use like Mongoose, because Mongoose is just for Express. But yeah, this OAuth process is the same everywhere. I mean, on Coinbase, I did it with PHP. It's the exact same thing with Ruby. It's going to use the exact same tokens and everything. Twitter's documentation isn't written for any particular programming language. As long as your programming language can make HTTP requests, it can do this. Okay. think I'm done. All right, so where we got to, I think I missed one thing. I need to have 3001 in there. Okay, so your goal is going to be to for this to happen, and then to get to this page. If all goes well, you'll end up with this cannot get login / Twitter / callback blah blah blah, and you'll also have a whole bunch of stuff up here in this query string. So that's what we're aiming for. The stuff up here is important. That's what we're going to be using in a bit. We're just not doing anything with it right now. But this will complete the first leg of three-legged OAuth. So before you start, one thing is make sure that inside here you have the correct stuff. So like in the screenshots, it's just ABC123. That's not going to work. It has to be an actual consumer key and consumer secret. You're going to get that from Twitter at this apps.twitter thing that you set up before when you go to that app you made. So mine is WinPrez. And you go to this keys and access tokens part right here. So you're going to get those from here, or else it's probably not going to work. Let me slack out the other URL you need. I forgot one. Okay, and we'll pick it back up in 10 minutes.